Hello, everyone, and welcome to WarsawJS Meetup number 74. I'm very happy to be your host today, and I will make you now a very short intro to our meetup. So first of all, say hello to the organizing team. So me, Ania Dławichowska, Maciej, and Mirek, all of them helped a lot, and the whole WarsawJS community participated in creating and running this event. What is WarsawJS? What's all of it for? So we want to create a community for everyone where everyone can develop their skills, not only junior programmers who are learning just by listening to the clever speakers and to all people who have some skill already, but also for soft skills, like for the mid developers and senior developers and software architects who are joining us and are giving today their talks. So everyone can develop something and share knowledge and actually promote this lifetime learning attitude. And we are all a community of mutual respect and support. So every time when you join us and every time when you have a question or you need some support or are looking for a partner, then we are happy to help you. This is why we subscribe to the Code of Conduct. It's a fork of Berin Code of Conduct. You can see it on our GitHub repo. And if you feel that there is something missing, you can always contribute to it. The purpose of it is to create this environment of respect, and this means that any symptoms of bad attitude, of some kind of intolerance, I mean, some kind of disrespect, reasoning from coming from different differences that are between us is not going to be tolerated, and we organizers have the right to intervene in such situations. So anytime if something like this happens, please let us know. We will tackle this situation. We are already 5,561 people at meetup.com/WarsawJS. This is one of the biggest groups of JavaScript in general. So we're happy that we're growing, and thanks for helping us with this. You can join our Slack just when you click or when you actually go to warsawjs.com. where you can see a big button, join our Slack. There is an invitation from me, and you can have the benefit of our help and support, or just sharing interesting information at our Slack. Today's sponsors are 10 Crowds, FreshUp, PackHelp, PostClick, Prisma, Sumo Logic, and Xfang. All of these companies participate in this event too. They support us directly with money, so we are happy to run because of them also, and we have the means for providing this meetup. We also have a partnership with Wallaby. Wallaby promised that there are 2 licenses for you for today, and there will be some interesting kind of contest. I will show you later. I will tell you later. Anyway, this tool, this license can be yours today. We also have some JetBrains licenses for you. Maybe I will introduce you how to get the license, because you can do it by going to Remo. How to go to Remo? This is our networking platform. It's started to run already. It's already there online. I will show you how to go to Remo. I will share your screen, my screen, and here I will show you. Here you can see the link on the top. https live-remo.co/e/WarsawJS. When you click it, you will go to here. And here I'm sitting. And the first person who will appear next to me is going to get the license. That's the trick. So here is a seat. I need to be close to you to pass you the license. So please sit next to me. Oh, Piotr, you were fast. Okay. So later I will see who is here. Actually Piotr was first. So congratulations, Piotr. We will do a similar game later. So that's it, and I will continue with sharing the slides. So it's here. Okay. I would also want to encourage you to join our Vue.js workshop. It's on 18th of October, so this Sunday. We give you a very good tutorial. 5 hours of the event, like something like 4 hours of coding, with very good skilled trainers. They will directly help you with developing your Vue.js skill. This is a very affordable event. We take a reasonable price of $15 for that. So today's agenda is Marek Kirejczyk, who is already with me here at streaming. So I will pass the voice to him in a moment. Marek will talk about 5 ways how to get hired by a bad company. Next, Katerina Skroumpelou on scaling with NX. This kind of tools you will see. And Daniel Norman from Prisma will show you about rapid and safe type Node.js development. So that's it. We start with Marek. Marek, are you here with me?
Yep, I'm here with you.
Hi, Marek. How are you today?
I'm great. Great to be here with you. So yeah, really great talking to such a wonderful community. And yeah, Piotr, thank you very much for having me.
Thanks, man. So you have something like 15 minutes for your talk. Later there will be some very short questions and answers session, and the stage is yours. Good luck.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Piotr. Yeah. So 5 ways to get hired by a bad company. So how to get hired by a bad company? Well, I think one way to get hired by a bad company is to pick the company with a great office. And some might say, a company with great office, what could possibly be wrong with that? I mean, great office is a great office, right? Well, I would advise to be careful, because a great office can take your attention away from other important matters, like salary or possibility to develop your skills. And I know what some of you might already be thinking. He's only saying that because he has a crappy office. And I can tell you for sure we have a great office, and I even took some photos to present it today to prove you that we have a great office. So the argument is not based on bias or my personal bias. Okay, so what are other great ways to get hired by the bad company? Well, a lot of people like to work for the great brands. So what could possibly be wrong about working with a great brand, right? We all love to work with those big US companies, startups, and internet giants, and so on and so forth. But here's the reality: while a lot of people come there to work on high impact projects and things that millions of people use every day, oftentimes, like majority of that project is actually not that high impact and might be actually quite boring. And moreover, those companies oftentimes, not always, so do your job, do your own homework, do your own research, but a lot of those companies are actually using a lot of legacy technologies. So for example, if I ask you, hey, would you like to work in PHP? Then probably majority of the people would not be interested, and only minority of the people would raise their hands. But if I ask you, hey, would you like to work for Facebook? Then suddenly many more people would be interested and might be raising their hands. So here's the catch. Majority of the code in Facebook is written in PHP. So Big brand, not necessarily interesting project, not necessarily interesting technologies, but do your own research. And I know what some of you are thinking. I'm only telling you that because I don't work with interesting brands. I don't work with the strong brands. So I brought you this slide. Even for we working in the blockchain space, but even for people who don't work in the blockchain space, I'm pretty sure they can recognize one or two brands here. So we work with some of the greatest brands in the blockchain space on some of the most interesting projects. I still argue it's not the reason why you should work with us. So, well, a lot of people say now, okay, Marek, I know what you're thinking. I know what you're telling. We should not be easily confused by a big brand or great office. We should pick the company with the highest salary, right? Well, after all, it's important how much I'm gonna earn. And if you want to know how much you're gonna earn, you just need to know you just need to multiply the salary you're gonna get on your job offer by the amount of time, by the amount of months that you're gonna work for the company, and you know how much you're gonna earn, right? Well, here's the catch. In some companies, what you might find is you get the initial salary, but there is no much room to grow. In other companies, when there is an opportunity to grow your skill and grow your position in the company, and that is reflected in the salary and the compensation, you can actually earn much more during your lifetime in the company. And again, to give you an example from our company, we have Adventure Path, and every half a year you have an opportunity to grow, to become more senior person and have a higher salary. And if you're learning faster, there is a special fast track for you. And yeah, we help you all the way through. You get a mentor, and we really help you do a sustainable development rather than, you know, just extraordinary for working after hours and all that stuff. So now you know, don't be fooled by big brands and offices. Check the salary, check the opportunity to grow. I think the choice should be now easy. Or is it easy choice after all? Because still the big question is, what kind of technology would I like to work with? Should I work with PHP or Java or C# or TypeScript or whatever else? Well, a common way to pick the technology you want to spend your next decade or so, spend your career with, is to pick the popular technology. And what could possibly be wrong with that, right? Well, here's the thing. And I can tell you, I'm a little bit older probably than most of the people here on the Meetup today. I spent almost 15 years in the industry, over 20 years doing software development. I'm still young, I'm still in my 30s. Probably most of you are younger, not all of them, not all of you though, I guess. But the thing that you start noticing when you're around a little bit longer is those technologies, they go in cycles. They start, they're being created, and they have their springs and summers and falls, and you know, one day they land on graveyard technology, and not many people are very interested in. So some choices that seems to be very interesting, very tempting, because, you know, like Java or C# are super popular technologies. Like, yeah, but if you start investing in learning Java and C# today, and C# and Java start to decline in following years, you might soon find yourself on the market that has a lot of Java and C# developers. And when you were looking at those seniors guys and architect guys, how much they earn, in 5-10 years, when you get there, you actually might earn a lot less, because, you know, there are just plenty of people there. So what I love to do, and what I would advise to anyone who is adventurous, is to invest in those technologies that are on those early days, like artificial intelligence, blockchain, or in our community, front-end community, JavaScript community, invest in TypeScript, which is a fast-growing technology, or go for Rust or Elm or Go. There is plenty of those technologies on the rise. And if you get really, really good over time, in 5-10 years, when they are at the top of the hill, you're the top expert in this technology. And it's a time when you have the most interesting jobs, doing the most interesting things for most interesting brands. And it's a time when you earn the big bucks. So one might say, Marek, I understand what you're saying. Don't be fooled by the office. Don't be fooled by the brand. Pick the company with with technologies that have a future and pick the company that allows me to grow. Is there anything else? Well, there is one more common way of thinking that I think can be very, it might be a little bit somewhat dangerous when picking your career. I should pick the company with the best skill in X. So there's a lot of those companies. We are the best Ruby company in Poland. We are the best Python company in Poland. We are the best React company in the world, right? So what could be possibly wrong with working with the best people in particular field, right? You learn fast and all that stuff, right? Well, here's the thing. I would always pick the company with a strong engineering culture over the company with really strong skill in particular technology. So I would look already on the interview process. Am I being interviewed? Is the company asking me, what are the functions in the documentation of React, and what is the arguments that function take? Or do they ask me to solve problems and do actual coding on the interview? Or is the company expect me to work in particular field, just doing React components all day long for the next couple of years? Or do they look for versatile people, the kind of people who can do a little bit of front end or a lot of front end, but also a little bit of back end? Do they allow you to grow front end developers into full stacks? Do they allow to grow full stack into DevOps? Do they take care of their own automated deployment? And are they expecting me to know things, or are they expecting me to learn things quickly? And finally, I would look at things like, am I going to have a mentor and I'm going to be on my own with my learning and grow, or is someone going to help me? Or am I responsible for a piece of code, or we all are responsible for a whole project? And finally, I find a very good trade if the company has some open source that is popular and used widely. That's usually a good sign of a strong engineering culture as well. So here we go, my friends. Don't be fooled, and do your research, and let me know if you agree. Do you have any questions? Would you like to add something, or do you hate it? Do you disagree? Would love to hear your feedback. And I think we need Piotr back. Piotr is coming back.
Thank you, Marek. Very interesting subject. Very interesting. I actually know what you're talking about. We recently also had this kind of questions in my company. However, there are some possible questions from our audience. Dustin, for example, asked you, how about React? Would you invest in React?
So I'll tell you about React. So React is that interesting technology. I mean, definitely Vue is fresher and more interesting technology, but we didn't go for Vue in our company. We went for React. I would find Angular to be overcomplicated and too heavy for majority of the cases. I guess, if you work for Google, Angular makes a lot of sense, but for most of the projects, it doesn't make a lot of sense. And I think React is very interesting for us because it's very simple. In fact, if you're a clever guy, you can learn React today with hooks. You can learn the whole React like in a day or maybe a week at most. And it really helps you. And our company is not very focused on building front ends. We are focused on building blockchain-related things. And blockchain-related things oftentimes require front ends. So we pick React because it's fast to learn. And if you're already a good engineer and you know how to build things and how to build high quality code and how to do testing, then you can just learn it very quickly. So again, I would argue that the question should not be, is React the right technology to invest, but am I using the React in the right way?
Awesome. I think it answers the question, and the regular question and answer. So how about Vue? Have you tried with Vue? Is it also possible to learn in one day Vue.js?
Well, the truth is we didn't really took a closer look at the Vue. We did do a very the opposite of deep, like a very shallow look at Vue on several occasions. So I think it's interesting technology. If you're if you're, for example, a front-end company, or if you are a company that heavily invests in front-end, then Vue might be a good choice. Definitely. So it's not a yes or no. It's rather how you use Vue or React rather than is it Vue or React for me.
Exactly. I would agree with you, because this kind of discussion, what technology, is not really meaningful if we don't know for what we apply that. So the last question from Michał Duszak. Good salary when you are left on your own, or bad salary while you're under a good mentorship?
Well, again, I would rephrase the question a little bit. So I would say, what are the possibilities to grow? And that's the most fundamental question for me. And the second, also very important question, will the company gonna notice when I'm gonna grow my skill and compensate accordingly? I think those are the two questions. So if you have a good mentorship, I would always go for good mentorship and a good growth, unless the difference in salary is too drastic. But like a good companies with good mentorships rarely would undervalue developers too much. So I would rather go for that. And finally, something you can consider if the company has a really good mentorship and but not very good salary, is to go for that company to spend there like a year or two and then go for other companies, or shorter, or half a year. And I think that's also, once you're inside the company, you can also give the feedback to the company. Hey guys, I really love working with you, but it seems, the salary is below what the market offers. And, what are the possibilities here? Yeah. So it's always a challenge, because market is very versatile, and the differences in salaries are pretty wide. But
Of course,
especially in the early days, I would of your career, first years in your career, I would always emphasize on growth, skill set, mentorship, and strong engineering culture. This is something that is most often missed, most often looked into not enough.
I'm happy you mentioned the last one, the engineering culture, because I also had this experience which actually helped me to grow in the long run. Because the first company which I joined happened to be a company with a strong engineering culture. It was in the end of 2013. Okay, Marek. So last question for you, because there was
one
more. From Davidos, and he asks, how do you deal with competition from big companies like IBM, Hyperledger, Fabric? I think those are the first choice for big financial companies. How can ETH, custom dev with React, etc., compete?
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a great question. I would. It's too easy to answer though. Like, the truth is, all the interesting things in the blockchain space happens on Ethereum or similar blockchains. It's Ethereum, then there is a long pause, a long space, and then there is maybe 3, 4, 5 different blockchains that together adds up to like 10 or 20% of everything that happens. Like, Ethereum is 80%. So it's really easy, because we're really good. We started early, like 3 years ago. We started when Ethereum was just starting out, and we were able to grow as a company with the community, with all those startups from San Francisco, from Berlin, from London, all those great companies. We know them and they know us. So they oftentimes they refer to each other, and they just reach, hey Marek, I have this and that problem, I need a couple extra hands for work. So we are a very natural place to go for them. On the other hand, the big companies like IBM build all those Hyperledger fabrics and all that boring stuff, and the truth is, we're still looking, but we didn't really see any interesting production implementations. And the reason is because blockchain is in this very early stage, and those companies in those technologies in those early stages, they usually take off in startups and smaller companies that kind of want to redefine their business models. They want to build something new from scratch. They want to destroy status quo. They want to disrupt right? IBM don't want to disrupt everything. All they want to do is they want to keep the warm asses sitting on their warm chairs. So they're not taking risks. They're not making big innovations. They just go to companies and say, hey, we have this new blockchain thing. What you want to build with us? And people are like, I don't know. You tell me, what's blockchain good for? Oh, what's blockchain? How about we do this? No? How about we do that? No? And then they were in this mode for a couple of years now, and they really didn't build a lot interesting stuff. So
maybe they just buy the small companies in order just to prevent them from building something new.
Like it's part of completely different presentation that I already did, I think last year or 2 years ago on WarsawJS. But digital camera was built in Kodak. Kodak bankrupt because of digital camera. The first smartphone was built by Nokia. Nokia bankrupt because of smartphones built by Apple and companies in partnerships with Google. So it's here in these early days where you can work on the most interesting things with small companies. And one day, hopefully, some of those companies are going to become those big companies. And when it happens, you're going to work for them, but you're going to work for them not on those boring projects and not on those low impact projects, but you're going to work on high impact projects, interesting technologies, interesting projects to work on.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Marek, for this answer and for answering all the questions. I'm sure there will be more questions to you if you joined Remo, our Remo networking session. Are you going to join it now, maybe?
Yeah, I'm already there. I'm just going to turn on my mic and you can get in touch there.
Okay,
thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. Before I invite Katerina, the second speaker, I will show you something that on Remo, I can actually share my screen again. So I share my screen, the whole application window. Don't be afraid about this inception. Yeah, so when you join this this link, which is on the top of YouTube and on our Meetup site, you press sign in, and then you go here. And what is interesting, there are floors. Most of the people are on the first floor, but if you jump to the fourth floor, you will get from me WarsawJS. So this license that I promised in the beginning. So obviously I'm on the fourth floor and on the second table. That makes 42. Aha, you're first. So yeah, we'll just write in a private message. So congratulations, nice to see you here. And yes, that was it. So now I invite Katerina. Katerina Skroumpelou, is it the right way I pronounce your name?
Yes, it is the right way.
Yeah, it was a long time when I was learning it. It wasn't very easy. Katerina, I'm so happy to see you for the second time at WarsawJS. For the first time, you had a short lightning talk, and it was a very big disadvantage of the meetup because you had so much knowledge to share and so much interesting experience to share, and you had only 5 minutes. So this time, a full talk for you. The stage is yours. There will be also a question and answer session. So I'm happy to host you today.
Great. Thank you for having me for the second time and for trusting me with this.
Yes. So good luck, Katerina, and I jump to the background.
Sure. So can you also add my screen? Yeah, perfect. So hi, everyone. Let me start I always have this little timer so that I know how much time I take when I talk. Hi, everyone. Thank you very much. I don't know if you were here the last time I gave a talk for WarsawJS, but thank you very, very much for having me for the second time and for trusting me with this. Today, I'm going to talk to you about NX. It's the tool that Narwhal, the company I work for, develops. And to build on what the previous speaker talks about great companies, Narwhal is a very great company because not only do we work with great clients, but we also develop our own open source tools, and we're very developer oriented. So enough about Narwhal. About me a little bit. I'm a software engineer at Narwhal, as I said. I'm the Angular Athens Meetup co-founder. I'm a Google developer expert for Angular, web technologies, and the Google Maps platform. I also participate in the program committee of the Vox Days Greece conference when it happens, but now with the coronavirus, things are a bit uncertain, aren't they? I'm also a speaker, an instructor, a mentor, and a cat person. And I also climb mountains. So this is me at the top of the highest mountain in Greece. So enough about me and the company I work for. Today we'll talk about NX. So the summary of the talk is, first of all, we're going to talk about what a monorepo is, what NX is, if NX is only for monorepos, which is not, why you should use NX, and see some features, and then we'll see it live, we'll see it in action. And I'm very, very excited about NX, and I hope I pass on to you this excitement. So what is a monorepo? A monorepo is a single Git repository which contains all your apps. That's scary, right? So some facts, it's not a monolith. So it's quite the contrary, because monorepos actually simplify code sharing and cross-project refactorings, and they significantly lower the cost of creating libraries, microservices, and micro frontends. So adopting a monorepo often enables more deployment flexibility. It also, as I said, supports multiple projects in the same repository. But what's cool is that projects depend on each other and they share code. And you can manage dependencies in a better way. Also, when there is a change, you do not rebuild or retest everything. This is a misconception. You only test or rebuild the affected code, and we'll see this in action. Also, you can have a lot of independence because you can split your code into composable modules, and each developer or each team of developers can work only on a separated part of a huge code base. So it does provide a lot of independence. And also it delivers consistency and predictability in your code by also maximizing the ability to share code between projects. What is NX though? NX is a set of powerful, extensible developer tools which help you scale your application and coordinate better with your team, which is good. So some facts, the big companies are using it, like companies like Google do use the monorepos, and large companies use NX. It's good for all sizes though. You can have a smaller size application. It does not mean that you have to manage a huge code base in order to use NX. And it's not only for monorepos, because NX also provides a huge set of tools and features, which we will see later in this talk. And you will be convinced that it's not only for monorepos. It might even be for your small side project. Also, it's good for full stack JavaScript as well, because it does support the creation and management of tools like Express or Nest.js, where you can actually create some servers with JavaScript. So is it only for monorepos? No, it's not. Why? So as I said, it gives you out-of-the-box configuration of frameworks and modern tools so that you can focus more on your application and less on configuring it, right? Usually share code across multiple applications or teams while enforcing clean integration points. And you also understand the dependencies in your code base, so you can run tests or on only the areas that were affected by the things you changed. You have the NX CLI, which we will see in action, and it's very amazing. And with the NX CLI, you also have a graphical user interface to use the CLI, which is a plugin for visual code. You also have a lot of tooling and a lot of schematics so that you can really use code generation, not only for Angular, because if you have used Angular, you have used the Angular CLI, you have an idea of what schematics look like. You can generate components, you can generate services, parts of the code. So the NX CLI does provide you with a a lot of such commands to create your schematics. And if you do not like the things that are generated by the NX CLI, you can create your own schematics. Also, it helps you with workflow management and your dependency management, as we'll see, and you also get NX Cloud. So let's see all these things one by one. The CLI, it will help you generate tabs. It will help you test them, run them, organize them. And as I said, there is the NX console. It's a tool for Visual Studio Code, which is like dials and buttons that you can click and choose and type, which will help you do what the CLI does if you do not like CLIs. We'll see it in action, but essentially you can run npx create an NX workspace and give it a name, and this will create a whole workspace for you, which will have everything wired up. And as you can see, you can use Angular schematics, you can use Nest, and then you can build only the affected code or test only the affected code, and we will see this in action. Also, there's tooling. There's the dependency graph, which is very, very cool. Also, NX analyzes your code base and sees only the affected code. We say that you only build, you never build the same code twice. And this is true. You never test the same code twice. You never build the same code twice. Because NX will analyze your code and only go and update the things that you actually touched. Also, it provides a set of tools for migrating. So you can use a command like NX migrate, and if you want to move from one version of NX to another, and this goes with the version of the tools you're using with Angular, for example, or React, you can run this command, and it will actually take care of migrating some parts of the code from one version to another version. Then, of course, you can format. You can run an NX report to tell you the versions of all the things that you're using. You can rearrange things in the generated workspace. You can also run many applications simultaneously, as I said, the NX console. And you have a lot of plugins, which we will see in a bit. I'll show you. I'll give you a quick tour of the NX website. So plugins means that you can have a plugin for React, plugin for Angular, plugin for Nest, a plugin for Storybook that will just have their own schematics and help you build things. Schematics. I've said that word a lot today. There's a schematic for anything you want to generate. So you can generate, for example, a React application or a Node library or a React library or anything you want. And you can create your own schematics. For example, if your workspace, if your organization does things in a certain way, you can write your own schematics and then use NX to run these. At some points when I talk, I am really, really worried if I'm actually getting through or if the connection is okay and it's not lost, because I never get a instant feedback when I'm doing.
Everything is okay, Katerina.
Okay, good. Thank you. This is what I needed. So, workflow management. NX also helps you manage your workflow. You can add all the tools you need and use them from within NX. And you can organize your tests, your builds, and your CI. And also the dependency management. We'll see this in the demo. You will see how cool it is. You can manage your dependencies both internally and to external resources. You have the dependency graph, and also the cool thing about having a monorepo where in it you have multiple apps and libraries is that you only have one package JSON where in there you have all the dependencies, so that you're sure that the application that you're developing in your front end or the client-facing application or the admin-facing application all have, for example, the same version of React, so that you have your mind at ease and you know that when you upgrade React, it's going to be upgraded in every single application or library. Also in releases, it helps you very much manage releases in all of the sub-applications and sub-libraries. Then the NX Cloud. What is the NX Cloud? So what if you want better computing power? You can expand NX's local computation memoization, this is the caching actually, to the cloud. So if your team member has already built or tested similar code, NX will use the results to speed up the command instead of rebuilding or retesting everything from scratch. What this means is that you can actually use the computation power of the NX cloud to offload some of the load that goes to your local machine to the cloud, and this will help you have faster builds and faster testing, which is pretty cool, actually. So let's see some things that NX does. First of all, actually, I will start by showing you, you can go to this GitHub repository, which is the NX examples. And no, actually, first, let's see. If you run this command, the npx create NX workspace, and I ran it before, so before we started, let me make things bigger. They're big enough now. Here. So before we started, I made sure I run this command, which is npx create NX workspace, and it creates and I created it with a React application. So the results of this command was that I have, oops, let me make this bigger. That I have this workspace, my workspace, where I have my applications, and inside I have a React application. As you can see, no package.json here. There's only one global package.json. And I have my app component, as you see. I also have a libs folder, which we will fill in. Some tools, some schematics that I can add. Here, I can add my own custom schematics. And one package.json to rule them all, where you have the commands that are available to you. As we talked about, the affected, the build, the start, the serve, and the dependencies. So right now, if I go here and run NX, I don't have NX as a global, but never mind. You can run NX serve test app, and it will serve your application, your React application on localhost 4,200. And it will look like this. But what if we wanted to generate a library? So if I go here and I say NX generates a React library that is called UI test, and I run this schematic, it will eventually go in this folder here, in the libraries folder, and here is my library with everything I need, the configurations. And in it, I have a new React component, right? Which is pretty amazing with just commands. And I can generate a new component in this library. So I can generate a normal React component, which will be called test library component. And it will be in the UI test library that I created. And I will export it because potentially I may need to use it in the app. So this command here would go in here in the UI test repository directory, and it would create a new component, which I would be able to use. So flash forward, I can do a lot of things here. We have this repository where you can actually see a full-blown example of an NX application with most of the features, which I'm going to use now. So here it is. So in the NX, the NX examples directory has the same layout as you see here. It has two applications, the cart and the product. We're going to run both, and it has two libraries, which in them have a lot of UI components. So let's take a look, if I run this application, how it will look. So again, I run nx serve and I serve the products application. And again, if I go to my local host, here will be my application. And you can see that this application has a header. And if I go in my products application, which we just run, you will see that I have the NX example header. So the NX example header is in the libraries, the shared libraries, which is here. This is this component here, the NX example header. This component is used both by the product and the card application. Oops, wrong thing to look at. Nope. Never mind, I cannot find it now, but I will show you how it's the same thing. So this is the card application, and it has the same header component, which is shared between the two applications. Now, we understood that by just looking at the code. But what if we wanted a tool to understand it and to understand the dependencies? So for this, you have the NX dep graph that I told you before, the dependency graph. And if you run it, you will see, this is pretty amazing, right? You will see the two applications here. And you will see that we have the products application that we just run, the card application, and then you have the shared header, which both the products and the card application depend on. And then you have other things that both the applications depend on. Of course, both the three applications depend on the actual applications, right? But then you can actually understand which parts of the code are dependent on which. And this really, really helps you to manage your dependencies and everything else. And you can turn off things from here. And you can just play around and just, for example, look at the card application. Also, if you want to build your application, I built it before, I cheated. So you saw that it only took a second because I had the cached outputs. If I would delete the build folder, let's see what it would do. And now if I would build again, it would take up, oh, it was again cached because I was using the NX Cloud. But in any case, you can see that it was using the cached output. So I think this pretty much wraps up the demo. Let me see. So yeah, I think this wraps up the, let me think if there's anything else I would like to show you before I jump to your questions and finishing this session. Oh, I forgot to tell you about the Angular JSON. So this application is written in Angular, the NX examples application. The demo app I showed you is a React. So instead of an Angular JSON, it has a workspace JSON, which is the same thing. In workspace JSON, you have the architect. The architect's part is, so you have all the applications that you have available. So for example, here we would have the products, and then you would have the architect where you would define everything that you would, all the tools that you would use in order to manage your applications. And you would have your configurations and the server configurations, the linting, the test, and the deployment. So this is one of the most powerful parts of NX, where you can actually edit all these things and make sure that you adjust them to whatever you need to do. So I think, yes, this wraps up the demo. You can see this demo in github.com/narwhal/nx-examples. And you can find NX on GitHub. There are a lot of code examples there, and there's a great community that you can participate in. So some of the links we talked about today are these, and you will find them in the slides. And I think that's it. You can follow me on Twitter and CyberCity. This is my site, and this is the link of these slides today. So make sure you copy it, because there are all the links that I mentioned today. And thank you very, very much.
Congratulations. Congratulations for the talk. Great applause. There are some questions already. I didn't want to disturb you during during your talk. So let's try for the first one. Dustin asked something like this. Does NX have some templates to avoid overhead of configuring NX in smaller projects?
So my answer would be that just generating the NX workspace also generates some applications with it. So the template that you have is the already generated application of when you create an NX workspace. So I think it would work in that way. So the NX itself provides itself a template out of the box.
Okay, awesome. So next question from next person. Damian Zintler. Another monorepo tool is Lerna. Is NX better? Have you any experience to be able to compare both tools?
I don't have an experience with Lerna. I cannot say if NX is better, but let me share again. In my slides, I do have, where are my slides? Oh, here they are. So in my slides, I have a link to this monorepo post written by one of the co-founders of the company, Victor, who actually compares or sort of talks about Lerna and monorepo. So I think that this post could be useful to you if you read it. If you go to my slides, is the same some resources #3 monorepos post.
Okay, so you will also share the slides later after the presentation?
Yeah, so let me post the link to the slides.
Okay.
Yeah, the link to my slides is, I posted it here. You can share it with the rest of the people.
Awesome. So we will pass it later through StreamYard. And there is one more question from Sushmit. We met in Portugal at Web Summit last year, still before COVID. Sushmit is asking, if a repo already has multiple code folders, can NX be dropped into it to handle that?
I am not sure, unfortunately, and that is bad of me. I think that you can add an X to an existing repository. I mean, I'm pretty positive you can, but I do not know how exactly it would handle all these things. So I can get back to you if you reach out to me.
Okay, awesome. I think everyone can reach out because you published your Twitter. I can confirm that Katerina really replies to messages on Twitter. At least I'm sure on the sample of one when I sent you some messages inviting you to WarsawJS. So I'm happy you're here with us. And I know that you don't have too much time today. You declared that.
If there are more questions, I can give you another 5 minutes, I guess, if you want. I mean.
Awesome. So you said that at 7:30 you need to go, so that's why you were before at the networking session, and now you're probably not going to join back, but still we have your Twitter, so we will write to you if we have more questions about an X and everything.
Yeah, and in my slides there is also a link to my website where I have my LinkedIn and my email, I think. So yeah, do reach out to me. I can answer all the questions you want and just help you out.
Okay, so thank you very much, Katerina.
Thank you.
I'm very happy to be your host again, and I hope you will join us once again. Maybe even after COVID, we'll visit Warsaw, because
yes, I'd love to.
Also, because we organize once a year Conf.js, and then many people from all of the Europe come to visit us.
Actually, I love Poland. I really love Poland. I've been to Warsaw, to Poznan, and to Krakow.
Okay.
Yeah, I love Poland.
Great. I didn't know. So awesome, awesome to know that. And again, thank you very much for being here. And yes, so one more thing before I ask to come our last speaker. I need to find a way to hand out the second JetBrains license I have for you, and I will do it this way. I will share my screen again, and there is something. I need to share my Chrome tab. It's somewhere here. No, it's not here. When you go to WarsawJS.com, one moment. Now I can make it. Yes, when you go here to WarsawJS.com, you have here join us on Slack. So the first person who I'm going to see today that joined our Slack is going to get this license, because we need to promote the growth of our community. So I'll be happy if you use this link to join. It works for certain. It works certainly works, because I checked it today. So good luck. All right. So now, Daniel, you're here already. Hey.
Hello, Piotr.
How's the weather in Berlin now?
Still rainy, but we're sticking in.
Okay, it's not that far away from Warsaw. I think now you can go by train in 7 hours, something like this, between Berlin and Warsaw. So we're not actually that far away, and this also can be seen through the weather, I think.
Yeah. Hope to visit you guys soon.
Yeah. No, it's absolutely the same. So the stage is yours. You have 25 minutes and questions and answers session. So I know also that you have a surprise for today to make it more interactive with the users. So with the audience. So I'm very happy, to see that. So good luck, Daniel, and see you soon.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll start my timer too, just so I can keep it on the time. So hello, welcome, Cześć. Today we'll talk about rapid and type-safe Node.js development with Prisma. And first I'd like to thank Piotr, Anya, and the rest of the WarsawJS team for this invitation. Doing this online, is quite a thing. It's not as simple as in-person events, and so it's really nice to see how the community still gathers and we have all of us here today. So before I get into the talk, I'd like to say that I'd like this to be the beginning of a conversation, and I would love to hear from you, your thoughts and your experiences working with databases in Node.js. And so a little bit about myself. My background is mostly as a full stack developer for the last 10 years. And during that period, I've focused on different parts of the stack, doing front-end, back-end, DevOps, infrastructure, Kubernetes. And the project I worked on before Prisma was Aragon, which used Ethereum and IPFS as the backend. So before we get into this talk, I'd like to start with a survey, and you can join the survey at this WarsawJS link. I can try and share the link. Let's see. Okay, I'm not sure what happened there, but you should be able to join it by going to Slido and typing this, either scanning the QR code or putting WarsawJS as the QR code. You should be able to already do that. Let's see. Make sure I've got the notes. And make this full screen again. And so the first question I have is whether which database do you use? And so we have one person who's managed to get this working. That's great. Postgres. And let's see. Okay, we're seeing more results coming in. So we have some MySQL, MongoDB, and Oracle. Okay, that's very interesting. Thanks for sharing, Sushmit, and Dustin. Okay, let's continue to the next question. So which database access library do you use? Do you use ORMs? Do you use query builders? There's quite a lot in the Node.js ecosystem. Let's see. This is an open question. But okay, you can also reply in the chat if you don't feel like going to the... Okay, I don't use JS. Plain SQL. None. No ORM. You can also share the ORM in the chat. Okay, and then, okay. And then lastly, have you used Prisma before? All right, that's good because, so we have a lot of plain SQL users here. That's already interesting to hear. So let's talk, sorry about that. Okay, let's talk about our agenda for today. So the first thing that we'll do is we'll do an introduction and we'll discuss the problem space of working with databases in Node.js and how Prisma can potentially help with that. Then we'll take a closer look at Prisma and see how it might be a solution for some of those problems. And then lastly, we'll finish with a live demo. So introduction. It's 2020 and you want to build a web app. And the first thing you probably need to think about is where are you going to store your data? Because most applications today are data intensive in the sense that the functionality that they offer is based on their ability to store, manipulate, and retrieve data. So most apps rely on some kind of persistent storage, typically in a database. And we saw that, in the poll. So people are using MySQL, Oracle, Postgres, and MongoDB. And in this diagram, we have a typical architecture for a web app where the API technology could be REST or GraphQL or something a bit more exotic like gRPC. And the Node.js server might be a long-running Node.js server, or maybe even just a Lambda or a serverless function. It could even be a different server technology like Python or Rails or even Golang. And the main point here is that you have a lot of options when it comes to what kind of a backend you want to choose for building your app. The highest sort of level of abstraction, you have the option of a backend as a service, something like Firebase or AWS AppSync. And these handle a lot of the concerns for you, but they require you to learn a proprietary technology that usually comes with a vendor lock-in and are often also not standardized. Then you have the self-hosted backend as a service options that include Hazura, which supports Postgres and MySQL and gives you a GraphQL API, and Supabase, which is also another self-hosted backend as a service. And these are great if you're looking to purely build a GraphQL or a REST API and you want to get started quite quickly. Then you have the option, which is probably the most common one, of building something yourself. And when you go down that route, you usually pick your database technology, either a relational SQL like Postgres, or you go down the route of NoSQL with MongoDB or Cassandra, or one of the many other options that exist out there. The main point that I'm trying to make here is that the database technology that you choose will influence almost every decision about your application, which leads us to one of the main challenges in the current Node.js ecosystem. Working with databases in Node.js is difficult. There's generally 3 categories of tools, and the current landscape of tools, ranges from sending raw SQL strings to higher level abstractions like, these SQL query builders, including Next.js, which one of the viewers mentioned, and ORMs, and also the landscape of ORMs is quite varied and includes different styles of ORMs, from active record to data mapper, and there's many different implementations. And the thing is that each of these approaches come with their own set of problems and pitfalls. And if you're really interested to get a bit of a comparison, you can check out this article that has been published on Prisma's data guide, which does a comparison of some of these. We also recently published a specific one for ORMs, comparing ORMs and query builders, and then another one on the type safety of these different libraries. And so this is beyond the scope of today's talk. And I can also, I think, close this. So what's the solution? Well, Prisma makes working with databases easy. So now we come to the second part. And what is Prisma? So Prisma is an open source database toolkit, and it consists of 3 tools. These are the 3 main components that comprise Prisma. So there's Prisma Client, which is the database access library for Node.js. And this is typically what you would use in a Node.js or even a TypeScript project. And Prisma Client replaces what the ORM or the query builder or the database driver would typically do. Then we have Prisma Studio, which is a modern, intuitive, and easy-to-use database GUI, which we'll also get a look at in the demo. And then lastly, we have Prisma Migrate. And Prisma Migrate is a declarative database migrations tool that is currently experimental, but we're hoping to sort of reach general availability by the end of this year. And Prisma Migrate differs from... So first of all, what are database migrations? So database migration is the term that we refer to when changing the database schema over time. And that is because relational databases typically require you to define your schema up front. And whenever you want to change that schema, you have to write these SQL files that will alter the tables and perhaps add new tables or alter some of the columns by introducing either new columns or renaming existing columns. And the approach of using SQL files is what we would consider an imperative approach. And that is because each time you define the steps, the imperative steps that are required in order to carry out the change to your database schema. Prisma Migrate differs by working declarative. Essentially, you have this Prisma schema, which we'll also look at. And the Prisma schema is like the connecting point. It's sort of the single source of truth for these 3 components. And what it is it's this representation of your database schema. And essentially, whenever you want to carry out changes, you make the change to the database schema, and Prisma Migrate works out the steps that are necessary in order to change and bring your database schema to that updated state. So what are the goals of Prisma? Well, first, to boost productivity by letting you query your data in natural and familiar ways in the context of Node.js, where you're working with objects. And then second, increase confidence with type safety, auto-completion, and a robust query API. And we'll take a look at that very soon in the live demo. So how do we do that? Well, the first thing is that Prisma allows you to think in objects rather than SQL. Every Prisma client call maps to a type. And so the result is it's predictable ahead of actually running the query. Working intuitively with relations. So fetching relations is probably one of the most confusing aspects when working with these relational databases. And this Fluent API that comes as part of Prisma client will actually simplify the whole process of doing joins across tables. You also have this auto-completion and type safety for database queries. And you have this declarative and human-readable database schema, which is essentially the Prisma schema, which is also serving as a single source of truth for your database and application models. So I've spoken a lot about type safety and type errors, and I thought that since this is a JavaScript meetup, it's worth mentioning what type errors are. And so I'll start with a simple definition of a type error. And so a type error is when a value in an operation is of a different type from what the code expects. And in this code example that I've put here, what we see is how a function expects a certain structure and how we get 3 different kinds of type errors from misuse. And this is very, very common in JavaScript. And one of the main problems is that these errors in JavaScript, they typically occur at runtime. And so that means you either have to run your code, either in the browser in Node.js, or through your tests in order to discover these errors. And so TypeScript, which is like a superset of JavaScript, allows us to detect these errors ahead of time while we're actually writing the code. And so a similar example, here we have the same function, however, we define the type that is expected by this getFullName function. And then these 3 same examples of using these 3 calls to this getFullName function, you get these squiggly lines in VS Code because it can actually know the types ahead of time and then detect these errors at build time or while you're actually writing your code. And so hopefully that sort of makes the argument about the value of type safety in TypeScript. Now, the great news is that the benefits of type safety can be had at 0 cost in a project using JavaScript with Prisma. And we'll see that in the live demo. And so now we come to the live demo. And, live demos are a tricky thing. Things tend to go wrong. And so let's pray to the demo gods and at least be as calm as the Dalai Lama if things don't work out. Okay, so I'll open up my editor. And before we get into it, I'll talk about what we're going to do. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at the Prisma schema, which is our single source of truth for the database schema. And we're going to create a Postgres database with Prisma Migrate, which will use that Prisma schema. And then we'll install and generate Prisma Client. And then I'll show how actually Prisma Client can be used to perform database operations, like doing queries where you're saving an entity and relations, and you're also fetching relations. And then lastly, we'll look at Prisma Studio, which will allow us to explore our data in a similar way to, I don't know, some of you might be familiar with PHP MyAdmin or one of the many database GUIs that exist out there. So let's get started. So I have a Prisma schema here that I've defined. And the basic structure, I hope that the text is big enough. Let me just leave this open and I'll just make sure that you can view that. So I see also a question from Daniel Janus here. Does Prisma only work with relational SQL databases? At this point, yes. However, that might change in the future because the whole idea of Prisma is supporting multiple databases. So right now we only support MySQL, Postgres, and MariaDB, and also SQLite, I should say. However, that might change in the future. So coming back to this database schema, the basic structure of this Prisma schema is that we have these model blocks, and each one of these model blocks maps to a database. And so what I've defined here is I've defined a user with a one-to-many relation to posts. So typically in the post, we would have this user ID, and here we just call it author ID for it to have more semantic meaning. So every single user can have multiple posts, and that's also represented with this relation field here. And then every post can have multiple comments. So this would be the kind of database schema that we would use for a blogging application, which is a really good example. And each one of these comments has, one of these string fields, and every one of these rows maps to a database, a table column. And so a comment is associated with the post and also with the user who wrote that comment. So we have this database, this Prisma schema here, and we also have this data source block, which defines the connection to the database. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually run the migration using Prisma migrate. And I already have a Postgres running on my server using on my local machine with Docker. And so the command to do this is Prisma migrate. And this involves two steps. The first thing you do is you save your migration, and it detects that the database doesn't exist. And so now a snapshot of the database of the Prisma schema was taken and saved, and now we can run the migration with the migrate up command. And so now it's run our migration. I can also open up the Postgres CLI and also have a look at the tables. And so indeed we have this comment, post, and user table. And we can also look at the actual schema for the user table. And indeed it maps to what we had in the Prisma schema. So now that we have the database created, we can actually get started with Prisma client. And so I'll open up here. First of all, I want to show the package JSON. So the dependencies that I have here are the Prisma CLI and Prisma client. And what happens is, so as I said, the Prisma schema is a single source of truth for the database schema, but also for the client so that it's all type safe. And for that, I have to generate the Prisma client, which loads the Prisma schema and then generates that into your Node modules. And now I can go ahead and open up. I have this script file that I've created. I'll make the text a bit bigger. And so I've created a couple of to-dos here to fill out for me. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a user. And you can already see the rich auto completion that you get along as you're writing. So here we have the data, and I do control space, and I have, the comments, for example, the name, the posts. These are all optional, but the email is required. Piotr@prisma.io. And I'll give it a name. And now if I use a number for a field that is of type string, this is actually a type error. And so when I mentioned before that you can get a lot of these type safety benefits, I'm going to show how you can do that. And so what you can do is you can add this TS check comment to the top of your file. And what will happen is that VS Code will actually run your code through the TypeScript compiler. And again, this is just plain JavaScript. And because Prisma uses all of these underlying types under the hood, which we can see here, it's able to detect these kind of errors. And so I'm going to change that to a valid input. And I also want to create 2 associated posts. And so I can do that using this API. And I have 2 options here. I can connect or I can create. Connecting would be in order to connect an existing post with this new user that I'm creating. But since I don't have any, I'm going to create, and I'm going to create 2. And again, if I do control space here, I already get the possible fields that I can use in order to create a post. So I'm going to write first post, and let's set published to true. And let's create, in fact, 2. And for this one, we can also give it some content. Okay, so that was our call. And I can actually go ahead and run that. And so that's what I'm going to do. Run demo, which will run our script. And we get this user. Now, imagine that we wanted to also get these associated posts that we just created. Well, we can use this include property and then select the kind of relations that we want to fetch along. And so here I can also fetch the posts. And here we have it. We have Piotr, and we have these 2 posts that were created and are associated with Piotr. So now I want to show how you could also create a second user. And while we're creating this second user, we're going to create a comment that is associated with one of the posts by Piotr. And so again, we use the prisma.user.create. And here we get to pass some data. Anna at prisma.io. And then here we could create the comments. And so here we want to create a comment. And the comment is the actual field. Interesting. Post. And now we want to link it to a post. And this is why we're probably getting this squiggly line, because we are missing the property post. And so let's pass this post property. And here we can connect it. And here we pass the ID. And then we're going to take user1. And because we also included the posts, we have that also in the auto completion. And let's do that. Let's leave the comment on the second post and ID. And let's give this a go. Okay, so we created this Anna, but we didn't include in our response all of the relations. Let's try to have a look using Prisma Studio at some of the data in our database. And so for that, I'm going to run Prisma Studio. And that has opened up here. I'm going to move that to this screen. And so here, if we look at the users, we have indeed Piotr and Anna. And Piotr has these 2 posts. One of them doesn't have any content, but they both have the titles, which is a required field. And if we looked at the posts, we're also able to see the comments. And so here we have this comment by, I'll make it a bit smaller. And so interesting thing. And then the author of this post was Piotr. And if we look at the comment, then indeed we see that it was about this. And then the user who created it was Anna. So that was Prisma Studio. Now we can go back to our presentation. And so far I mentioned, like, the example that I showed was an example of how we create a new database using Prisma Migrate. And this is what we call a greenfield approach. And this approach works well for new projects, but what about existing projects? What if you were wanting to adopt Prisma today in an existing project that already uses Postgres in the app? And so in this diagram, this diagram illustrates how this introspection workflow works. And the basic idea is that you define the Prisma schema, but you don't define any of the models at first. You just define your data source, and then you run Prisma introspect. And what Prisma introspect does is it actually looks at your database and then populates the schema with all of the fields from your database so that you can actually start using it. And so coming back to the to this diagram, the idea is that you introspect your database that populates your Prisma schema, and then you run Prisma generate, which generates the Prisma client, which you can then use in your application. And so that is the sort of the path to gradual adoption. And Prisma in the real world. So, I mean, this example that I gave was just a simple script, a Node.js script, but of course, Prisma works well in the context of building applications. So if you wanted to build a REST API, you have this example here on the right-hand side, where you use Prisma to create a post inside the handler of one of the endpoints. And then similarly, I have an example here of some GraphQL resolvers in a GraphQL API. And so these are just sort of to showcase that Prisma works with, you know, many different kinds of frameworks. And in fact, we have this Prisma examples repo, which you can check out. And we have some examples with Apollo, Type GraphQL, Nexus Schema, Express, and Next.js. And so on that note, I'm finished. And I think the main takeaway here is that if you're working with a relational database, Prisma makes you more productive and confident by reducing a lot of the manual work and reducing a lot of the type errors that you might have. And so you can really focus on your application by thinking in these JavaScript objects. And yeah, thank you.
Congratulations, Daniel. Thank you very much for the presentation. I'm really impressed what's the stadium of the development of that tool. There are some questions. For some you already answered. I'm not sure if you covered answer to this question. How does Prisma work with Postgres functions?
Yes, so that's a very good question. So essentially, you can define Prisma Postgres functions and use them if you're using the introspection workflow. However, you can't define these functions inside your Prisma schema, and it's possible to use Prisma. So if you're using Prisma client, you don't actually have to use the API at all times. You can also use you can send raw SQL queries, and in those raw SQL queries, essentially you can use these Postgres functions.
Okay.
And so it doesn't sort of natively support it, but you can still work with these Postgres functions.
All right. And next question. It looks like it's quite robust, said Dustin. Is there a documentation?
Yes, absolutely. We have quite a lot of documentation, and I highly suggest you check it out. And so we have this, this is the main page. It's prisma.io/docs. And you also have this setup Prisma, which gives you the two sort of workflows which I've discussed. The one is adding it to an existing project where you would use the introspection workflow. And then the second would be starting from scratch using SQL migration. And then lastly, starting from scratch with Prisma Migrate, which is the first demo that I did. Okay.
Awesome. And there are 3 questions from Luke. I'm not sure which is the... well, let's start with the first one. You have a big experience, so I want you to ask, what's a proper way? Prisma or EMS, one person developing database, backend, frontend, and maybe DevOps topics?
Yeah, so first of all, I don't think that there is one right way to do it, but I think that one of the most important things when working with a database is really type safety, because essentially you're communicating with a component that isn't living inside your application. And so when you're writing, say, raw SQL, you don't really have a verifiable way at build time to know what's the data that you're going to actually get back or what's the shape of it. And so it's up to you as the developer to ensure that you're writing these queries correctly. As of now, there's not many database access tools for Node.js that have this level of type safety with a programmatic API, as I showed, where you're using this the Prisma client API, essentially. There are some tools for TypeScript that allow you to get that level of type safety by writing raw SQL. However, I'm personally a big fan of like Prisma because of that kind of intuitive thing. However, if you're really comfortable with raw SQL, that might be a good path for you. And you can also do that with Prisma or one of the many sort of TypeScript libraries for working with databases. And especially, so if you're one person working on the database backend and front end, I think that Prisma is a great fit for that kind of situation. And I myself, I've sort of bootstrapped a lot of small projects on the side using Prisma, and it's been quite nice, not having. And I've worked a lot with Next, and I've worked with SQLize before. And so ultimately, I think the question of like raw SQL versus a higher level of abstraction is a matter of taste. But type safety is important, whichever sort of level of abstraction you choose. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I'm sure it does. So thanks a lot for that. These were 3 questions. We are over. We reached 8 o'clock. So I can see that also Daniel has some question, and Sushmit again. So I think it's a good moment to jump into a discussion at the networking session. So I will put again to the comments what is the link to our Remo, and and that's it. So thank you very much, Daniel.
Sure. I'll join the Remo, and thank you so much, Piotr.
Yes, thank you. Thanks a lot. This will be obviously we will publish your video later. Also, all the other speakers. So thanks a lot, and see you later. Yeah. And for closing this event, I think I have another license, again, JetBrains license. This license are cool because they can be used either as a actually it's not a license, it's a 100% discount, and I can give it out to what's cool about them is that actually they cover all JetBrains products, so you can have 100% discount for WebStorm, or also for RubyMine, or also for IntelliJ, and so on and so on. So this is very nice and a generous gift from JetBrains. It has it's a 1-year subscription, so it's really cool. And I think that we will do it this way, that I will make a jump again at Remo. So the last link I gave you, and the first person who is going to sit next to me is going to get the license. And now I'm not disclosing where am I. I'm somewhere. Somewhere on Remo, so you can find me, and when you find me, I will pass it to you. Okay, so thanks a lot. It was great time together. I hope we will still see each other at Remo, and next month there will be also WarsawJS. We're still not sure if it will be possible to make a hybrid event also at CIC in Warsaw, or maybe only online event. It depends how the COVID situation develops. So I hope to see you also next month, and thank you very much. See you soon. Goodbye.